Hello, everybody. This is Eric Groves, co-founder and CEO of Alignable. And today I want to introduce you to a good friend of mine, Ken Giddon. I met Ken some 25 years ago when he was launching Rothmans, Union Square in New York City. And since then, he and his brother Jim have built Rothmans into a New York City clothing institution. They've added locations around the city, built out an incredible team, and at the same time been instrumental in working within their local communities to overcome multiple economic recessions, get through 9/11, address racial inequality, and at the same time survive the current COVID crisis. And I asked Ken if he'd come here today and share a little bit about what they've been doing to try and get through to the other side of this crisis. So first of all, Ken, always wonderful to see you, and thank you for joining me today.
Thank you, Eric. Great to see you.
What really stands out in your mind about this crisis in comparison to some of the other things that you've been through?
Well, it's definitely different. I mean, we survived Superstorm Sandy. We survived 9/11. We survived the 2008 financial crisis. Those difficulties, while horrible, also you could see an end line. And the problem with the COVID crisis was it seems interminable. And, that's been the hardest part. During, Superstorm Sandy, we knew if we could get through a couple months, we'd be okay. And, when this started last March, we were hopeful and we thought we would be over it by the fall, but then, that changed. And so this has been the hardest. I mean, we went from probably 35 employees down to my brother and I, and now we're up to like 8. But it has been, the biggest challenge is staying positive. And I think, that's what we've done a good job on.
And what are sort of some of the biggest changes that you had to make to adapt your business to actually continue to try and sell your inventory during this crisis? I had some great online sessions with Lacey early on, but what other things have you done to really change the way that you bring your product to your customers?
We definitely our online business is up like 700 or 800%. Yeah. But that's off of a very tiny base. It doesn't truly move the needle. And, we're to blame for that because we should have been better at it in the first place. But we were always kind of the barbershop mentality to retail, come in friendly, we're going to know your name. Even though we have 3 stores, it's always been a friendly place, a high touch place. And, so transitioning from a high touch environment to, theoretically a high touch online business is difficult. It's hard to get that same feel when you go digital. And so we've done a decent job of it. And, we were lucky enough to use some of our PPP money to help with that. It's been difficult, but, that's one of the things that when we come out on the other side, we'll be better at. Yeah. The key thing is for us is, our customers have been our friends for a lot of years, guys like you. And, guys that want to support us and want to see us get to the other side. So, one of the things, if I was giving advice, is make sure you're doing right by people, number one. And if you do right by people, then ultimately they're going to try to help you. And, the call to help small business is really it's really an amalgam of all these small businesses that have touched people. So, it's important that organizations like Alignable remind people that it's the small touch things that create community. And together, if everybody is doing that, it's a growing community. And it's more than just an announcement to shop small rather than shop at Amazon. It's the kind of things that small businesses can do for people.
Yeah, and way back in the 80s when we first met, you were sort of one of the founding members of New York Cares, and were sort of instrumental in bringing people together in support of the community. How have you seen that happen during this crisis? How have you embraced your community? How has your community embraced you to try and help each other and yourselves through this?
You know, we spent a lot of time talking to other retailers. Just in my business, we were doing weekly Zoom calls. Commiserating is really important because we're all fighting this very tough foe that nobody knows what the other side looks like. So it's important not only to have peer groups in your community, that are in the same business that you're in, but also groups of small businesses. I'm now the co-chair of, we have a store in Scarsdale, and I'm the co-chair of the Scarsdale Business Alliance. I'm on the board of the 14th Street Union Square Partnership. And so you have to have those dialogues, because sitting through this alone is really difficult. And there have been some great ideas. I mean, when we, in the first 2 weeks, somebody probably tipped me off to call American Express, and we had a $50,000 or $100,000 American Express bill, and one phone call to American Express, and I picked up a month of payment freedom, and I shared that with a whole bunch of people, and that was incredibly helpful when it looked like the doors were shut and we had nothing coming in, and all of a sudden you had a $100,000 American Express bill. So things like that, and how to get through the PPP loan process, how to get a second PPP loan. Those are all things that communities and communication really help. Even things like, protocols with PPE and, how to deal with all the government organizations. I also, I served on Mayor de Blasio's small business committee to open New York City, and there were a lot of good ideas that came out of that. So it's, one piece of advice is just stay involved.
Yeah. And what can we as, consumers, what's the mental model that you want us to have as we think about all of the, because there's a lot of businesses that have actually done okay. And in many ways, they stand in a position where they can really do a lot of good by just looking around them and seeing who's been challenged through this crisis. And what message would you have to those folks? Because I know a lot of them are great customers of yours, about just thinking a little bit where their money is flowing and the great things that they can do by just shifting a little bit of their spending back.
Yeah, I mean, I would say show a little sympathy, and don't get caught up in thinking you're a genius because your business is up during COVID. I mean, right now I'm sitting above a wine store, and their business has been great. But does that make them any smarter than the guy who sells clothing? We sell a product that nobody needs during COVID. I mean, basically, you don't need what I sell. So, we can make you feel better, and sometimes, get you dressed up right, and it makes you feel good that day. But I think the key is to understand that this is a global phenomenon. There's going to be winners and losers, and show some sympathy and show some understanding that, this has been tough on a lot of people. And small business employees don't think about who owns the store and whether they're driving a nice car or something like that, but think about all the people that work. We waited a long time to get the PPP loan at the beginning, but we were using that money to pay healthcare for 6 months for our employees that weren't working for us anymore. Wow. And that's what we tried to do. And I think for the consumer, remember, Amazon, I love Amazon. I respect so much what they do. So I'm not an angry Amazon hater, but Amazon isn't sponsoring your Little League team.
Right.
People like Rothmans are sponsoring your Little League team. And we've been sponsoring your Little League team since before Amazon was anything but a river.
Right.
So, it's important to remember that this is the community. It's good for your towns, and it's good, it's good overall for society to have small businesses, because that's where so many of the ideas come out of.
Well, this was super, Ken, and I'd love to have you back and we can talk some more. Really appreciate everything you do. For those folks that are interested in checking out Rothmans, it's rothmansny.com, where you can find great apparel, most comfy t-shirts in the world, amongst other really great clothing. So thanks, Ken. Wonderful to see you, and look forward to continuing the conversation.
Do we send the modeling fee directly to you?
Absolutely.
Thank you, Eric.
All right. Thanks, Ken.